Money has its own rules, rules that millions of people have forgotten, but that have never disappeared. These are rules no one teaches, no one hears on the news or sees on TV, yet they affect everyone's life positively or negatively. From Rome's first pure silver coins to the king's debased coins made with cheap metals, all the way to today's digital money printed by central banks, these rules have never changed. They never vanished. They were only forgotten. Just as an empire collapses when it mismanages its money within a giant ecosystem, a single individual ends up in the same situation when they think about money incorrectly, not even manage, but simply perceive it incorrectly. In history, and even around you today, some people attract money toward themselves, while others constantly push money away. Even on the same street, in the same economy, with the same opportunities, the results can be totally different. So what are the laws that create these different outcomes? The first law is Gresham's law. Its logic is shockingly simple. This law applies to both an empire and an ordinary person. Its rule does not care about the size or power of a person or an institution. If two types of money circulate in a country at the same time, people spend the bad one and save the good one. This happens even today. You'll understand it instantly with an example. If US dollars and British pounds were both usable in a country, people would save whichever is more valuable and use the less valuable one for spending. When ancient Rome began reducing the silver content in the denarius, the people saved the old pure coins because their silver purity was high. They used the new debased coins for taxes, debts, and shopping. The same behavior appeared in the Middle Ages when emperors clipped valuable metal from coins. People have always chosen to hold the money with higher real value, from the ancient world to today. When money is debased or begins to lose value, everyone, governments and citizens, holds on to the better money and gets rid of the worse one. Over time, the weaker money slowly decays and becomes worthless. But this is only the law of slow collapse. There is also a law for rapid collapse, one where value disappears in a very short time within the system, Tears' law. When a major economic collapse begins and becomes visible, people do not want to hold the bad money even for a moment. They immediately try to exchange whatever they have into something more valuable, just like in Weimar Germany. Banknotes lost value within days. People needed a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. Imagine, who would want to carry a sack of cash just to buy bread? In such an environment, no one wants to hold money in their pocket, and they literally cannot. People in old Germany lived through exactly this. They ran to gold, to dollars, to cigarettes, even to barter systems. In recent times, the same thing happened in Zimbabwe and Venezuela. When a government's currency collapses, people flee from the worthless money to something valuable, something they trust. Gresham describes slow decay. Tears describes the moment money dies suddenly. These two laws that people today do not know show how money behaves toward people. But money does not move this way only between states and nations. Similar cycles exist in people's lives as well. Another law is one almost no one pays attention to. Call it whatever you want, it doesn't matter. The law does not change for anyone. The third law is this: bad thoughts drive out good thoughts. If a person thinks, money is hard, I can't do it, it won't be enough, then the mind automatically turns that into reality because it programs itself to fail. A person constantly runs the laws within themselves. This law doesn't only apply to the human mind, it also applies to empires. If an empire or a state does not keep its debased money, meaning if it removes it from circulation, to bring in a new, stronger money, then a person must also not hold on to devalued thoughts. Just as money behaves outside, the human mind behaves similarly inside. From here, the fourth law comes into play, the Cantillon effect. When money enters the market, does it go to everyone? Maybe eventually, but the certain truth is this: it does not reach everyone equally. When the state releases new money, it first goes to banks and to those close to the system, elites, patrons, the ones who access new money first. At the beginning, nothing has happened yet, and prices have not risen. They buy at old prices. Over time, since they received the new money through low interest rates or credit, nothing touches them. But money reaches the worker, the saver, the ordinary citizen last, and by the time it reaches them, the new money has already been circulated, and as a result, prices have already risen. This is why some people always seem a step ahead, while others always feel late. You can see this in governments too. Those close to political decisions know what is coming and position themselves to benefit. But the public only sees things after everything is over. They bear the burden, because they are truly late. As the system sends money from the top down, value is kept at the top and the weight is pushed downward. Throughout history, the monetary order, the world it creates and reflects, was never just a story of metal, paper, or numbers. Whether money flowed toward the rich or the poor, whether it gained or lost value over time and how it changed hands, all of it emerged from how people behave toward it. In this section, we see the most critical point of the laws of money. One of the most unavoidable truths is this. In the flow of money, the source always strengthens those closest to it first, and those farthest from it, the people, are crushed under its weight. This was true in ancient Europe's Rome in the Middle Ages, across Asia's old kingdoms, and in modern economies as well. Time does not matter. Ethnic background does not matter. The rule, the law, is the same everywhere. The Cantillon effect shows exactly this. New money enters the market but does not reach everyone at the same time. The state, the palace, bankers, merchants, those who are closest to the system used it first and benefited from it. Especially in the old days when new money was released, months could pass before it reached the outer edges of the state. By the time the old money lost its value, the public was already trying to escape from it, so how is it that the wealthy benefit from it so quickly while not carrying the burden? Because of their position, they buy before prices rise. They sell, they trade, they invest, they grow their assets. By the time money reaches the public, everything is already expensive. This is exactly what happened in Rome's later periods. Debased coins with reduced silver content went first to soldiers and officials. By the time they reached the public, prices had already changed. That is why, in Rome, wealth always accumulated in the center and disappeared on the edges. In this case, it is the same today. Don't assume it is very different now. Back then, this process maybe took 2 to 3 months. But today, the same system returns to normal within 1 to 2 days. When state-owned central banks print money, the first to touch it are the banks. From them it flows to companies, then to the markets. The very last ones are salaried workers, savers, ordinary people. That's why new money always inflates the prices of tangible assets first. What are these tangible assets? Houses, land, stocks. All of them rise without exception. The lower class, at best the salaried workers, receive money 1 month later. But because they receive money later, they always lose. The reason for this injustice is not personal mistakes. It is the law embedded in the nature of money created by humanity. The same mechanism works in the inner world of the individual as well. If a person sees their money as worthless in their mind, they tend to spend what they earn quickly. This behavior is a characteristic trait settled in poor minds. If they see money as valuable in their mind, they protect it, even if they have 1 unit, and do whatever they can to grow it. This is also a shared characteristic of wealth. Just as people in history hid silver and spent debased coins, the instinct to protect valuable savings today is the same. This similarity shows a repeating human-money relationship throughout history. When value is felt, it is protected. When it is felt as worthless, it disappears. The laws of money are not only the product of countries, empires, kingdoms, or central banks. They are also the product of people's behavior. No one should fool themselves by blaming others or their environment. They should look into their own world. The 3 laws we mentioned above apply at the macro level just as they apply at the micro human behavior level. Gresham's claim, bad money, changes not only the economy but also a person's decision-making. Tirza demonstration of the Great Escape is the economic counterpart of a person's search for security. Cantillon's observation that those who touch it early win is the same for both the state and the individual. Whoever receives value first accumulates power. That's why when the monetary order breaks in history, the first thing affected is not always the economy. It is people's attitude and view toward money. We tried to show how these laws operate over states and human character. Now the next unknowns will be examined. How did these laws affect the strategies of states throughout history? An empire's power grows as its military and economic strength grow. Parallel to this, its currency grows stronger. As its currency strengthens, everyone wants that currency because of the trust they have in that state. At this point, the trap shown by Triffin appears. If a currency is to be used by the world, that country must continuously send its money abroad, because the value of what is demanded is high. When it exceeds its normal value, that country tolerates its currency flowing outward, because in return it obtains more, whatever it may be, more cheaply than before. But this eventually causes a problem. It weakens the country internally. America's trade deficits for years have been for this reason. As the world needed dollars and as its dependence and demand increased, America distributed more dollars because this benefited them. It allowed them to obtain things far above their real value. But at the same time, it slowly hollowed out their own economy. This effect was a push-pull principle, because when a strong currency flows outward, it manifests as inflation inward. As money gives power, at the same time it creates a weight that pulls that power backward. This is where Goodhart's warning comes in. When a measure becomes a target, it loses its meaning. This is exactly what happened to America. Since the internal money balance could no longer be preserved, as they tried to keep inflation at a certain number, that number could no longer measure reality. Even if the number appears low on paper, people's real lives say something else. What does this mean? Housing prices rise, education and healthcare costs increase. Yet official numbers don't fully reflect these or are not allowed to reflect them by governments. Thus the system appears to work properly. But between this illusion and the real lives of the people who do not understand it, a huge gap forms. While the state examines the increasingly complex numbers to mislead the masses and make the system seem stable, the public is crushed under the weight of reality. At this point, history and human behavior reunite again. When an empire chooses the easy way out and manipulates its own monetary measurements to cover its expenses and needs, trust in the system collapses just as trust among the people collapses. The same unavoidable danger must always be kept in mind today, because the modern American system is playing with this historical fire. The declining return of debt works the same way for both states and individuals. At first, debt looks like it supports growth. And if it is used for production, it actually does. A state builds new investments. A person pursues new opportunities. But when the opposite strategy is followed and time passes, every new debt begins to produce less benefit. After a while, debt grows and grows, but the gain stays the same. As the state borrows more, all of its gains go toward paying the debt. That's how the economy erodes. That's how a person's mind gets exhausted the more they struggle. And eventually, the system produces debt only to keep itself alive, just like a person who constantly generates the feeling of not enough only to survive. In the end, collapse is inevitable. Money flows through a person the same way it flows through an empire. And now the next question appears. If these great laws affect both empires and individuals, how can a person break this cycle? The laws of money do not only describe the past, they shape the entire order of today's world as well. Rome's debased metal coins, Weimar Germany's worthless banknotes, the modern era's unlimited digital and crypto printing. All are extensions of the same line and are under the rule of these laws of money and mind. And the ending of this line is always the same, no matter what is done right or wrong. History shows that very few succeeded and most failed. Generally, debt reaches a point where it no longer produces benefit. Every empire in history hit this wall. Debt produces growth in the early years, but when poorly managed and when new value is not created, the positive effect shrinks as debt grows. $1 of debt no longer produces $1 of growth. Then it produces half, then a quarter, then nothing. And from that moment on, the system does not progress. It is merely kept alive. This law is simple but harsh. Debt buys time, gives states and individuals a breath. But if it becomes continuous and poorly managed, it offers no escape. It guarantees being trapped in a dead end. During these periods, governments always turn to the same method. Call it whatever you want. The strategy never changes. They keep interest rates low, lock people's money inside the system, and silently melt the debt onto the public through inflation. History calls this financial repression. Many countries used this after World War II. While citizen savings, built with sacrifice, quietly eroded, the state's debt lightened. Today, the same method continues with a modern appearance. Years of low interest rates, people's savings losing value, prices slowly rising. All are new versions of the same tool. The engine inside the car is old, only the exterior has been redesigned. And while driving, the whole system can break down at any moment. As long as this structure runs, the public loses purchasing power and those managing the system buy time without carrying the burden of debt. At this point, the laws inside people's minds also activate, because the inner laws of thought determine the outcome just as much as the external laws of money. It goes like this. If a person constantly sees themselves as insufficient, late, unlucky, that person will always fall behind while someone else finds opportunity in the same economic environment. When a person tells themselves, "I can't do it," they start a new law within themselves. This law works in every area of life. They don't see opportunities, they don't like what they see, and they don't try what they like. But a person must choose and manage the mindset that breaks this. Just as the maturity and use of debt can save states from crisis, when a person says, "I can do it," they start a new law within. The mind follows the reality it begins to form and believe in. A repeated thought becomes a habit becomes behavior, and behavior becomes outcome. That's why many very wealthy people say the same thing. "I saw it inside first, then it appeared outside." The saying is true. We are what we say we are. History shows that money always flows through certain paths. Its laws are fixed. Accept it or not, nothing changes. The mind participates in this flow only to the degree it aligns with these laws. We cannot stop the laws outside, but we can change the ones inside. History shows countless states that collapsed or rose again depending on whether they could master this, because the image inside the mind determines the direction of a person's money. No matter the era, the same question always remains. Which law will a person choose to follow? If you liked it or found it helpful, you can subscribe, like, or share. The choice is yours. See you in the next video.